Okay, welcome back. And first of all, I would like to thank you, all of you, for the awesome support. I was getting a lot of inbox messages on LinkedIn and on Facebook, and yeah, thank you so much. And to be very honest, I was confused what topic to choose, where to start with, whether it should be a tutorial or it should be a generic video. What should it be, right? And I saw a discussion going on in some of the Facebook group, and the topic was Flutter is a UI toolkit or not. And I wrote an article. The link is in the description. That was a few months back, and this video is in reference to that article. So let's get started. We are going to discuss three things in the video. Number one, Flutter is a UI toolkit. Yes. Is Flutter only a UI toolkit? No. Number three, we'll see what kind of UIs and an application that you can develop using Flutter. If you just Google what is Flutter, you'll get answer that Flutter is an open source UI software development kit created by Google. It is used to develop applications for Android, iOS, Linux, and the list goes on. So there are a lot of tutorials on YouTube which goes like how to create responsive design, this kind of UI concept in Flutter, and that kind of UI concept in Flutter. And what's the reason? Why is that? Well, that's because Flutter is specifically created to develop awesome UI designs. That's why people are most into it. Now, considering the Flutter being used for a UI, there's a bit that I want to show you on my behalf. There's a quotation by Albert Einstein which goes like, we only use 10% of our brain. Well, that's true or false. That's not false for it, but there's another quotation which goes like, we only use 10% of Flutter, and that's by Martin Skezlek, and he's one of my favorite Flutter developers. So if you just visit his blog flutterdev.io, the link is in the description, you'll see some complex UI designs that is being developed using Flutter, and people are not using Flutter at its peak. And now if you have just watched some simple UI design on YouTube, make sure to check out these designs. They'll blow your mind. Is Flutter only for UI development? The answer is yes. Flutter alone is a framework that will get you just the front end or the UI part done. Now, what's the reason that people are developing full-fledged application using Flutter? That's Dart. Dart will get you full-fledged application in Flutter. Now, before continuing the discussion, there might be a question in your mind if you are just starting Flutter, which is, should I learn Dart before starting Flutter or not? Well, the answer is, if you know programming fundamentals or any other kind of language, whether it's C++, Java, or OOP, there's no need to learn Dart specifically. You can learn Dart on its own way. The reason why people are mostly into the UI stuff using Flutter is because the backend concept for almost all the frameworks remains the same. You know, there are REST APIs, there are backends, this is Firebase, that's MongoDB, that's how you fetch the data. Just the syntax of languages get different. The concept remains the same. While when it comes to the UI side or the user interface or the front end, you need to be creative, and that's why people are showing off their creativity on YouTube or on Medium or Stack Overflow or wherever you are. And hence there are more tutorials on the UI rather than the other use of Flutter. I hope it makes sense, right? So now if you get the point that Flutter alone is for UI development, then what kind of backend or the databases you can use with it? You can use Firebase, you can use MongoDB, even you can use your own backend like Node.js, Flask, or Django if you are a Python expert. And you can use local databases like Hive, and we have SKFlite where the F stands for Flutter. And now if you're interested to know what kind of apps you can develop which are having some awesome UI and backend, you can start with itsallwidget.com, and you can find apps on Play Store, on Apple Store, and even applications which are open source on GitHub. And obviously, since they are open source, you can look into the open source code. Enterprise organizations are also using Flutter. For example, Google Ads, Alibaba.com, Square, BMW, even the Google Assistant, and the list goes on. Now I hope you get the idea that Flutter alone is for UI development, and Flutter alongside Dart will get you the full-fledged application that you are seeing around the world. So whenever someone says that he or she is a Flutter developer, do not consider them that they are just the UI developer. They are Flutter developer. People do not tend to mention stuff like they use Dart for backend or Node.js and blah blah blah. So if you want to get started with Flutter, you can directly start from flutterdev, their official website, or you can start following other YouTube channels or articles. I will link the basics of getting started with Flutter in the description, and make sure to check it out. And I hope to see you soon in the next video. I know this one was a bit weird, but it'll get better with time. So yeah, happy fluttering and goodbye. Let's put it this way. Mujhe Allah puchega. YouTube tutorials on. Make sure to check the design out. They are super awesome. Now, what's the reason why people are developing